I'm Pamela Lavitt, the director of the Festival in Arts and Ideas, and I'm just going to briefly introduce our honored guest today, who we are so happy he's able to Zoom in despite technology's challenges. Lex Gillespie is a three-time Peabody Award-winning public radio journalist turned filmmaker. The Catskills is his second film. His first, The Mambo Nicks, do people remember The Mambo Nicks? A brilliant film, 2019, and we showed it here in this room in 2020, explored the mambo dance craze of the 1950s. His feature for public radio exposed dangerous jobs in garment factories in the US-Mexico border. He's chronicled the return of the sacred Blue Lake to the Taos Pueblo in New Mexico, and he told the story of a hip-hop opera set in a Korean mom and pop store. Please welcome Lex Gillespie.
Al, thank you.
So I think we'll start off with a few questions, and then I will get your questions going. So obviously we're all dying to know the most obvious question of all, which is my least favorite question to ask, of course, is how did you come to this? I mean, I know that the Mambo Nicks, there's an aspect of, I'm a big Mickey Katz fan, and Mickey Katz, of course, Mambo and Jewish and Yiddish music, but I wondered how the entree to the Catskills started, and where are you right now? So are you in the Catskills?
Well, first of all, Pamela, thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much to the Seattle Jewish Film Festival for having me. I wish I could be there, and thank you guys for coming and selling out the theater. I'm in the other Washington. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I'm in my basement. And I don't know if you can see my walls, but I will step aside for a second. So I have this knotty pine in my basement, and when I was working on my film, I noticed that at Grossinger's, the original Grossinger's had the same wood. They had the same kind of mid-century modern kind of knotty pine. So there was this kind of kinship. But no, I'm not in the Catskills, but the wood is kind of connected me there, I guess. So I did start, I started this film really unknowingly when I was working on the Mambo Nicks, because I had gathered a lot of footage from that that I didn't use. And I had gone to film festivals and did Q&As just like this, and at Jewish film festivals, and every film festival, someone would come up to me and say, that was fine about the Mambo, but I spent 7 summers at the Gibber, or one of the hotels up there. So I knew there was this interest in the Catskills, and people were I met so many crazy people who were passionate about the Catskills. It obviously meant a lot to them, and I thought that would make a great film. The audience is already there for it, and I had all this footage left over, so that's how it all kind of came together. And I also thought it was a great story too, obviously. So all those things kind of came together for it.
I imagine it's fairly difficult to make a film about something that people have so much nostalgia for and are very fixated. And as I mentioned to the crowd before, I did grow up in the Catskills, both vacationing, going to summer camp, the history of my family, but the divisions between those different places was a big part of that new world, decision. Where did you go? Oh, you were at Kutcher's. Where did you go? You were at the Browns Hotel. I'm just wondering about what's the sociology that you discovered of the Catskills as you were going through it. I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia, but what's the sociology? And there was one great comment, which I love, which is, Dr. Freud would have like a field day basically on this. So I'm just wondering, what did you glean from the psychology of Jewish life by doing this film?
Well, first of all, I will say, to get back to what you said at the very beginning, it was kind of a double-edged sword to make a film that everybody knows or everybody experienced, because everybody's going to be wondering, well, why wasn't my hotel in it? Why wasn't I went to this hotel and anyway. So that was a kind of a potential problem, but a good problem, I guess, because people just come to the film with a lot of interest. What I really thought was interesting was the division between the bungalow colonies and the hotel people. I thought that was just like I don't know, it was a great division. Certainly people that went to bungalow colonies had a totally different experience than people who went to the big posh resorts and even the smaller resorts, because I think it was just, if you went to the Catskills and you went to a hotel, you probably went there for 2 weeks. and that was your summer vacation. If you went to one of these bungalow colonies, and these bungalow colonies attracted, leftists, Bolsheviks, writers, it was it's almost there's a film in there too, I think, for the bungalow colonies. But I was really attracted to them because I thought they had there was a lot of people who went there. Obviously, they weren't the same, didn't have the same means. People who went to bungalow colonies weren't able to spend 2 weeks at the Concord, as Steve Gold pointed out in my film. So for me, that was a very interesting, this divide between the bungalow colonies, which was this total immersive. You went to the bungalow colonies and you were there for the whole summer, and the men were back in New York working, so the women were running the show. So it was a matriarchal, all these matriarchal societies operating throughout the summers, and I just think that's so ripe for more investigation or more documentaries. There's so many things could be done about bungalow colonies. So that's what I don't know. That's the division that I saw at the Catskills.
Absolutely. And I know that, they called it a cook-alone, right? That was the cook alone, right? You had an apartment that had a little kitchen in it, so you could kind of eat if you wanted to. I think one of the things, we all associate the movies, and many people nationally, like the Dirty Dancing, to the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but there's this other side of the Catskills nowadays, which is, I grew up near Muncie, so you have Satmar communities. So one of the unique things from Sullivan County to the Catskills area was you had from Satmar to socialist, right? Like literally you had the full arc of all the different Jewish, that didn't get along in New York, but they liked to be together. They managed to be peaceful no matter what. But I was curious about the religion aspects, because so much of the Catskills, I'm reminded of Kathleen Davies. She wrote a book about ethnic humor, and she said, ethnic humor is when you can make fun of your former self. And I'm just wondering, like, there's so much about a disassociation from a former religious or Orthodox life that is part of the Catskills. And yet the Catskills today are very much an Orthodox community. The
Yes.
Bungalow's become much more the Orthodox communities live up there. So I'm just wondering, it's probably a sideline, but what did you leave out of the film? Was that something on purposely that didn't really find its way into the film?
Well, there were a lot of things I left out, and that certainly was one of them. I think that merits a whole nother kind of documentary treatment. I only touched on it very lightly at the very end, just to show, because there's so much more of it. And there's, there are tensions right now in Sullivan County between the Orthodox community and between the non-Jewish residents of Sullivan County over things like, taxes, for example. People are complaining because the Orthodox community has a nonprofit status in a lot of cases. And they feel the people who in the townspeople feel, it's a town and kind of a town and gown almost kind of thing that goes on. And the people who live there, non-Jewish, they're very angry. They feel that the Orthodox community is kind of getting, I don't know, a free ride, or I don't know how to put it. They're not paying their share taxes to keep the roads up, to keep the fire departments financed, those kinds of things. So there's a really ripe story there. And I had so much to tell, and and other things I left out. My film kind of ends in the 60s, 70s kind of era. And certainly people went to the Catskills in the 80s and the 90s. But it would have been too much. We would still be watching the film, if I'd covered all that. So
I love it. Well, it is definitely a space of resourcefulness. I understand, even though there were chicken farmers, that the land was actually fairly uninhabitable. Like they couldn't farm there at all.
exactly.
So the Jewish community converted it into like the biggest place to go to. And there's also parts of Sullivan County that have, like, people call it the Baden-Baden, right? Where you could use the sulfurs in the eyes and you could drink the magnesium pools, and it has all this riches that the Eastern Europeans were used to in these places for health reasons. So it's a really fascinating place of riches. But I want to go ahead and open this up to all of you. You just saw this marvelous film. I know many of you raised their hands. You didn't get to see them, Lex. They had lots of hands up for people with associations with the Catskills. So I'm going to repeat your questions, but please, or come and grab the microphone right up here if you want to speak. But would you please line up if you have some questions, or raise your hands? We'd love to get some questions to yes, right in the front. Go ahead. She worked up in the Catskills. And it brought back so many memories. Yes, a Pamela Lane. Would you grab that microphone? Awesome. Thank you. I get the rabbi to work for me. I love this. We're putting the mic around so you can hear people.
Okay.
All right.
You didn't mention the Pines Hotel.
Didn't mention the Pines Hotel.
The hotel, and my husband worked there for many years.
Can you hear it, Lex?
Yes. It's kind of fading in and out, but yeah.
Yep, like the Pines Hotel didn't get mentioned. I went to the Neville as a kid. That's where we went. Can you hear or should I repeat?
No, please repeat.
I'll repeat. The people in the theater can hear you, but I'll repeat it.
Okay, I grew up in Liberty.
Grew up in Liberty.
In the
I hear it now.
The 40s and 50s. And I just want to thank you for terrific job you did in capturing the whole atmosphere that brought back thousands of memories. So thank you so much.
Oh,
Really.
thank you.
So I'm gonna, as we move around, so Lex, you and I talked a little bit previously about some of what it took to make this film. I know that you moved from journalism, but there's a unique story that you have attached to this film in particular and the production side of it that has nothing to do with the Catskills. It can be as far off, it's as far off as you can go. So would you share that with people? Because I think it's surprising to hear.
So when I was making the film, I needed help with a lot of the music and a lot of the graphics, and a lot of the pictures were very old that I found. And so I needed to have someone who was good at Photoshop to fix all the pictures. And this was right around the time that Russia had invaded Ukraine. And I had this kind of crazy idea. Well, what can I do? And I decided to see if I could hire people in Ukraine to work on my film. And, I didn't know I had no idea what was going to happen, but I ended up finding I would say maybe 10 or 12 people who did Photoshop and did the graphics and did a lot of the music are Ukrainians. And I found them on this website, and they're not paying me. I'm called Fiverr. And so you can hire anybody around the globe to kind of do work that you do, virtual work, I would describe it as. So I ended up having this front row seat into the war on Ukraine I knew every time there was one of those supersonic Russian missiles striking and I couldn't contact somebody in a day, I knew what was going on. But I thought I was trying to do a good thing, and they helped me certainly. So it was a very mutual thing. And so I ended up having most of my, I do most of the editing and everything on my own. So I needed this help. So it was very, very beneficial to have this, to draw on this really talented pool of people who were living in a very difficult time. So I was trying to do a good thing for them, and they really helped me out. And the person who did the Photoshop was just amazing. She did work on maybe 125 pictures all the while through the war that's been going on. I'm very concerned now because I haven't had contact with them in a while, and things are changing in Ukraine now, if you're following it. So I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to those people who were very, very good in helping me with my film.
Thank you for sharing that story. I know we had some more questions, but I think the Jewish News at some point wrote of your film, it slathers on nostalgia with a thick sour cream over a blintz. But the fact is that your film in some ways is more marvelous than Mrs. Maisel, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And I'm just wondering, can you describe to us your archival process and how you revealed, there's so many personal stories. You have the great participant narratives that you got, but you also had incredible footage. And I'm wondering, where did that footage live? Did it live in people's tiny basements? Or was it in, the Performing Arts Library in Manhattan? Where is this archival footage from? Where did you get this treasure trove besides the amazing contemporary interviews?
I love old films, and a lot of people shared their films with me. So I will say I got the films from a variety of sources. Like the White Row footage of White Row Resort in Livingston Manor. That came from the Wiener family. They very generously had these 16 millimeter films that I then had to transfer to a digital format. So I got some from families. I got some from traditional kind of archives. The National Archives had a collection of, there used to be something called the March of Time, which was this monthly kind of newsreel. If you went to the movies in the 50s and the 40s, you were shown like cartoons, and then there was every month there was a newsreel from the March of Time. So in 1948, they went to the Catskills and they filmed it at the Concord and Grossinger's. And the March of Time, which was owned by Time Magazine, donated all of that, their outtakes, which is things that were not in their broadcasts that appeared in the theaters. They donated all those outtakes to the National Archives. So all that Grossinger, that great kind of black and white Grossinger footage, that came from March of Time, National Archives. And then there was a lot of home movies that I bought, that I not buy, but I licensed from the American Jewish Historical Society in New York. There was a doctor who took a lot of films at the Catskills, and I used them. And then I just found I would be looking on eBay. And so some of that footage that I bought was actually old home movies that somebody sold me on eBay. So I had a variety of sources, but they're all living now in my Knotty Pine basement.
Do we have some more questions from the audience? Oh, no. Did we have some more questions? I can repeat them, so just say it out loud.
Yes, you answered my question. Where did the footage come from? How did you achieve that amazing clarity and sharpness of some of the old pictures and footage?
Yeah, the clarity and sharpness. I love the moments also where the black and white dance moved into color. You colorized it and it moved across the screen, and I thought that was really spectacular.
Well, I look like a ghost. I should turn down this light. Anyway, there are scanners now that can, take old footage and make it look really nice. So that's what I had. Not anybody in Ukraine. I wasn't sending movies to Ukraine to do that. Somebody in Colorado actually, but yeah, they have, I don't know, they've developed these scanners now that really make old footage look nice. And so I had 2K, it's not 4K, but 2K kind of versions of the footage made from all these different 16 millimeter sources. So those are old films, and they're in a state of disrepair, and they had to be cleaned up too. But so it looks so good because of this new marvelous technology.
Was there anything, well, I'll get to you in just a moment. Was there anything in the making of this film that truly sort of shocked you or surprised you, or you had to leave out for a particular reason on both ends, that you didn't go in knowing that you know now? And then is there anything that you had to leave on the cutting room floor that you feel would have made a great other film or story, but you couldn't include it?
Oh yeah, sure. So what I was most surprised about was the mock marriage or the mock wedding. I'd kind of heard about something like this, but I had no idea. I mean, you go to the Catskills because you want to meet your mate, right? You want to meet a nice Jewish boy or a nice Jewish girl. And then you go to the bungalow colony and they're just turning marriage upside down. So that was a bit of a surprise. And that whole kind of scene of having that party every year, which I guess went on in a lot of the crazy bungalow colonies. That was really surprising to me. I cut out one scene, which was with Steve Gold of Bungalow Colony. Speaking of the mock marriage, Steve went to Woodstock. So I had a whole segment on Woodstock in the film, and I showed it to a couple of test audiences in Maryland, near where I live, and then a couple in Florida, and people said it doesn't belong. And so I loved it. It was so Woodstock, if you don't know, took place probably a 20-minute drive from the Concord. Now, not on the day, not during the Woodstock weekend because the traffic was really bad, but it was very close. Woodstock was very close. And Steve went to Woodstock, and there was a great connection because he talks a lot about the freedom. He kind of told the story of his parents and put them into context with the Woodstock generation, because as he says, when his parents were the age of all those kids at Woodstock, their situation was very different. They were in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. But for them, it was another symbol for them of freedom in America. So I thought that, because that's, I think, one of the big themes of my film is freedom. It's pretty much one reason why the Catskills really came to be. But that was a scene that I cut out. I'm thinking if I got to make maybe a short film about it, I don't know. But I was kind of surprised when people didn't like it. And so I ended up taking it out because people thought it was just too much of a curveball. And I don't know. That's one I cut out.
Here. That's a great story. We can't wait to see the Woodstock film. My dad actually represented the person who owned the farm. Believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
3 summers as a waiter, Gibber Hotel.
The Gibber, okay.
Where are the nice pre-med, pre-law college kids going to meet nice Jewish girls?
I think he wants the film to be like a matchmaker for you or something. So I do think it's interesting that going back to the mock wedding, I mean, there's a tradition, of course, in Purim of obviously being able to dress as, the other sex, which is kind of an interesting thing. There's obviously theatrical traditions of that. But I just was wondering, did that spread to any of the other, was that only at that one bungalow colony, and you didn't see that anywhere else?
I think it was a kind of a staple of the bungalow colony experience. I don't think they did that at Grossinger's. I don't think so. I haven't heard of that one happening there, but the bungalow colonies, they were just their own little world. And somehow I've heard that, and there are pictures that I found that I used from other bungalow colonies where the guy was anyway. So I think it was uniquely a bungalow colony thing. And I think it happened in more places than just the one that I had, the Golden Rado. So I think a lot of those bungalow colonies had that every summer. That was one of their big events.
Do we have any final questions from the audience? Yes, Harvey. Do you know what happened to all the photographs from Grossinger's that were all signed? All over the walls.
No.
Sounds like he does.
Unfortunately, a lot of history, and I got to tell you that, I don't know. And it's too bad. I've heard of that wall, and there's lots of photos. I don't know what happened to them. There's a lot of other cases just like that things were lost because the hotels were just, knocked down. I don't know if I haven't seen collections and I've looked around, I haven't seen collections like that of things that maybe they're in private collections that I just don't know about, possibly. But, a lot of that was lost, including the Grossingers.
Two final questions, one here and one right there, and then we'll conclude. Go ahead, Bryna.
Hi, I'm Bryna.
I don't think it's on.
It's not on. So how do you talk? How do you turn it on?
Just ask you a question. I'll repeat it.
Oh, okay. So anyways, I've always heard about Catskills my whole life. I was so excited.
Always heard about Catskills her entire life. Was so excited.
Oh, I can hear her now.
So in 2015, there was a J-Date Jewish Singles Weekend up there.
In 2015, there was a J-Date Jewish Singles event up there, weekend up there. Here, take the mic.
Okay.
Wait, in 2015, did you say?
2015.
Oh.
So I was excited. I was working at presentation at the time. I figured I'm gonna do notes, listening to the show. I go to this thing.
Oh, can't hear.
Oh. It was
I was very excited, really wanted to.
Lots of trees, lots of trees, lots of trees.
Lots of trees,
Expecting a lot
Trees.
more,
expecting a
a
lot
lot more, a lot more.
Buildings.
To play.
Sick time there.
Single.
Typically Egyptian single. You loved your film.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just going to repeat it because he can't hear you. Go ahead.
I walked under Wilkes flag to the hotel.
You walked under
Oh my gosh. Do you have a picture of it? Where were you at
Chamberlain's
it?
legs.
Did they take a picture?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I know that
Wow.
klezmer musicians
You
have
saw.
also found a home at the hotels. There's been, you know, klezmer events, and I think during the summers, right, Harvey, they do, I can't remember the December. Klez Camp is up there. I'm just wondering, when I worked for the New York Folklore Society in Sullivan County,
Wow.
and did interviews up there with the Hasidic communities and stuff, but they were falling apart. So if you could just flash forward to us now, has anyone made an effort to preserve most of these buildings? Are they historical registry, or are the buildings just going to the wayside, as many of the places like in Sharon Springs and places like that, which are also, you know, bastions of former Jewish community?
I wish I had a positive, I wish I had better news, but no, a lot of those places, nature has just taken over. I am on an advisory board now for a new museum that's opening up in the Catskills, scheduled to open next year, the Borscht Belt Museum, which isn't going to be in Ellenville, which I guess is Ulster County, not Sullivan County. But anyway, it's close enough to the Catskills. But so that's, I would ask everybody to check that out if they're interested. There's going to be a museum there that's going to have a lot of the artifacts that the people have been able to find or donated. But in terms of the old hotels, I mean, some of them have the ones that have been able to that are usable, I guess I would say, have been, you know, a lot of the, as we talked about, the Hasidic community has really purchased a lot of those. But for the most part, these hotels are just like the Laurels. When we went on the boat to see the Laurels, they're just really in decline. Some of them burned, had caught fire. But for the most part, I guess there's just no money to fix these hotels. And a lot of them were made at a time when there really weren't strict building codes. And that was one reason why it was hard for people to, you know, to save their hotels, because a lot of them were just, there was a fire at one point and building codes got stricter. So, you know, this is all too much inside baseball for my film. But one reason why a lot of these hotels closed is just they were unsafe. And so, you know, that was, so you can drive and you can see the old ghosts. And if you go online, there's people who have made an adventure out of going inside these old places and taking pictures. I never did that. That was a little dangerous. But yeah, unfortunately, the sad thing is a lot of them are gone, and the idea of bringing them back, the museum is going to be in a bank, but the bank apparently was part of the way that funding was. It was a bank that funded a lot of the original hotels, so there is that connection. But in terms of other hotels, there's only a couple. I went to the one, the Grand Mountain Hotel that was at the very beginning. That's one of the few that's still kind of standing and is in operation. The Raleigh was in operation for a couple years. It had a steakhouse for some reason, had like a $50, you know, steakhouse kind of thing. I never understood that. It was, I think, run by, I think it was a Hasidic hotel, or a hotel that catered to the Hasidic community. But that was the only one, and that one I think I saw was up for sale. So, but that's just those are the exceptions. Most of the hotels are all have gone and are just, you know, nature has taken over.
So we have one more burning question right here. Go ahead, and then we're going to end, everyone.
So my name's Larry. And
Larry.
I just want to.
Hi, Larry. Oh, thank you.
this was specifically very important to me because I worked at Grossinger's for 4 years.
Did you hear that? He worked at Grossinger's for
yeah.
4 years.
And my parents purchased a bungalow at Golden Rados. And
Wow.
So
His parents purchased a bungalow at Golden Rados.
And so as you were showing some of the Golden Rados footage, you actually passed by my parents' bungalow.
Oh my goodness.
And when you showed the scene in the casino, by the time my wife and I were about to get married in 1984, we had our roof within that casino, and so I'm watching that, and my kids learned how to swim in that pool. So I know this. There's so many stories to be told, but you spoke to me specifically. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad.
And I just also want to mention that if you're going to make the Bungalow Colony movie, please get in touch with me because I have a lot of old.
Okay, a lot of old footage.
Wow.
Stories.
Wow. Where were you when I needed you 2 years ago?
Well, they call the Bungalow Colonies the pleasure dome of Jewish life. So thank you all. Hopefully you got to feel a little bit of that feeling, whether you hear or not. Let's all give it up for Lex Gillespie for an amazing film and for being available here today to join us. Lex, did you want to say any last words before we wave you off into the sunset?
No, just thank you very much for having me. It's been fun talking about this. They were great questions. So it was fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Lex Gillespie. The Catskills sold out show at the Seattle Jewish Film Festival. Thank you, Lex.